What if I told you that your Harvard-educated boss has the exact same probability of making consistently poor decisions as someone who never finished high school? What if that successful entrepreneur and the PhD giving you advice are equally likely to create situations where everyone loses, including themselves? I'm talking about Carlo Cipolla's second law of stupidity, the discovery that reveals why credentials and wealth are surprisingly unreliable predictors of good judgment. Hit that like button if you're ready to understand why professional achievements don't guarantee rational behavior, and subscribe to Timeless Advice, because this is part 2 of our deep dive into human stupidity, and what you're about to learn will help you make much better decisions about who deserves your trust. Here's the fascinating reality. Stupidity operates independently of education, wealth, or social status. It's democratically distributed across all levels of society. This means that impressive credentials can coexist perfectly with destructive decision-making patterns. That successful consultant, that accomplished doctor, that wealthy investor, they might possess genuine expertise while simultaneously exhibiting behavioral patterns that create problems for everyone involved. Stay until the end because I'm going to show you how to distinguish between real competence and mere credentials, why some of your biggest professional frustrations might stem from this misunderstanding, and most importantly, how to protect yourself without becoming cynical about achievement and success. Here's something that challenges our fundamental assumptions about success and intelligence. Stupidity doesn't discriminate based on social status, education, or wealth. Carlo Cipolla's second law reveals that the probability someone will consistently create lose-lose situations is completely independent of their impressive achievements. This democratic distribution of stupidity is one of the most important discoveries in behavioral psychology, and it explains so much about why smart, successful people sometimes make decisions that baffle everyone around them. Think about how we naturally categorize people based on external indicators of success. When you encounter someone with an expensive suit, an impressive title, or degrees from prestigious institutions, your brain automatically assumes they possess superior decision-making abilities. This isn't stupidity on your part, it's a reasonable heuristic that works most of the time. But the second law reveals the dangerous exception. Behavioral competence doesn't always correlate with professional or academic achievement. This realization doesn't mean that education and success are meaningless. They often do indicate valuable skills and knowledge. The key insight is that technical expertise in one area doesn't automatically translate to wisdom in applying that expertise or making decisions that benefit everyone involved. A brilliant surgeon might consistently make hospital management decisions that create problems for staff and patients. A successful entrepreneur might repeatedly choose business strategies that hurt their own company's long-term prospects. The implications become significant when you consider how often we delegate important decisions to people based on their credentials rather than their track record of creating positive outcomes. Understanding the second law doesn't make you cynical about achievement. It makes you more sophisticated in evaluating whether someone's impressive background actually predicts good judgment in your specific situation. But there's a particular illusion that makes this evaluation especially challenging. Let's explore one of the most expensive assumptions in modern society, that formal education automatically creates better decision makers. We've built elaborate systems around the idea that degrees, certifications, and professional training reliably indicate someone's ability to make choices that benefit everyone involved. But here's what the second law reveals. Some highly credentialed individuals consistently create problems while genuinely believing they're implementing solutions. Consider the Theranos case. Elizabeth Holmes surrounded herself with incredibly impressive board members, including former cabinet secretaries, renowned military leaders, and successful entrepreneurs. These weren't incompetent people, but their credentials didn't prevent them from failing to ask basic questions that would have revealed obvious problems. Their expertise in their respective fields didn't translate to the ability to recognize when they were participating in a lose-lose situation for investors, employees, and patients. The credential illusion becomes particularly dangerous in professional environments where questioning expert recommendations feels inappropriate or risky. When your highly educated consultant proposes a strategy, your accomplished manager implements a new process, or your certified specialist makes recommendations, challenging their judgment based on outcomes rather than credentials requires significant confidence and social awareness. This doesn't mean credentials are worthless. Formal education and professional training often do indicate valuable knowledge and skills. The key is learning to evaluate whether someone uses their expertise to consistently create positive outcomes or whether they apply their knowledge in ways that serve no rational purpose. The difference becomes especially apparent when you observe how credentialed individuals behave in high-stakes situations. Corporate boardrooms provide fascinating case studies of how the second law operates at the highest levels of business. Consider some recent high-profile examples. Wells Fargo's fake account scandal involved highly educated executives creating incentive systems that encouraged fraud while damaging the bank's reputation and customer relationships. Nobody benefited, not employees, customers, shareholders, or the executives themselves, who faced legal consequences. Or examine the collapse of WeWork's IPO, a company led by educated entrepreneurs and advised by prestigious investment banks somehow managed to create a business model that destroyed value for investors, employees, and customers simultaneously. The decision-makers weren't malicious. They had impressive backgrounds and genuinely believed in their strategy. Yet they consistently made choices that served no rational economic purpose, while creating problems for everyone involved. Interestingly, some companies with equally credentialed leadership teams avoided similar traps. Johnson & Johnson's handling of the 1982 Tylenol crisis demonstrated how educated executives can use their expertise to create positive outcomes for customers, employees, and shareholders by prioritizing long-term trust over short-term profits. The key difference wasn't educational background, but the ability to recognize decisions that benefit everyone involved. What makes corporate stupidity particularly instructive is how it demonstrates the second law in controlled environments with clear metrics for success and failure. When educated, successful people consistently make decisions that damage measurable outcomes for everyone involved. It reveals how behavioral patterns can operate independently of technical competence and professional achievement. This dynamic becomes even more apparent in academic settings. Elite educational institutions create an interesting paradox. They successfully teach complex academic subjects while sometimes producing graduates who struggle with practical decision-making that affects real people. Harvard Business School case studies, for example, often analyze companies that were damaged by decisions made by Harvard MBAs. This isn't a critique of education itself, but an observation about how academic excellence can coexist with behavioral blind spots. Consider the 2008 financial crisis. Many of the key decision-makers at major financial institutions were graduates of top universities who understood complex mathematical models, but somehow failed to recognize that their mortgage securities, strategies would hurt investors, homeowners, and their own institutions simultaneously. Their technical education was superb. Their ability to anticipate real-world consequences of their decisions was systematically flawed. The Harvard paradox reveals itself in academic environments too. Universities are filled with brilliant scholars who can solve theoretical problems while creating administrative processes that frustrate students, staff, and faculty without serving any apparent educational purpose. These aren't failures of intelligence, but examples of how intellectual capability doesn't automatically translate to practical wisdom. This pattern matters because society gives enormous influence to graduates of prestigious institutions. We assume that selective admissions and rigorous academics create people with superior judgment about complex decisions. But the second law suggests that elite education optimizes for academic performance rather than the ability to consistently create outcomes that benefit everyone involved. And this dynamic extends beyond individual achievement to how wealth affects decision-making. financial success creates interesting challenges for rational decision-making. Consider how many wealthy individuals make choices that seem to violate basic economic principles, like Howard Schultz's expensive and ultimately unsuccessful presidential campaign that served no clear purpose while consuming enormous resources and creating political complications. Or examine how many successful entrepreneurs destroy their own companies through expansion decisions that hurt employees, customers, and shareholders simultaneously. The challenge isn't that wealth makes people stupid, but that financial resources can enable people to implement bad decisions on larger scales with more dramatic consequences. When someone with limited resources makes poor choices, the damage is contained. When wealthy individuals exhibit the same behavioral patterns, they can affect thousands of employees, millions of customers, and entire industries. Twitter's acquisition and subsequent changes provide a recent example. A successful entrepreneur paid premium prices for a social media platform and then implemented changes that reduced user engagement, advertiser confidence, and employee morale simultaneously. These weren't malicious decisions, but examples of how wealth can amplify lose-lose decision-making patterns rather than prevent them. What makes wealthy stupidity particularly relevant is how society treats financial success as validation of decision-making ability across all domains. We give rich people platforms to influence public policy, social causes, and business practices based on the assumption that their wealth indicates superior judgment. But the second law reveals that net worth doesn't correlate with the ability to create positive outcomes for everyone involved. This pattern becomes especially apparent in professional settings. Professional expertise creates a fascinating dynamic where technical competence can coexist with systematically poor judgment about how to apply that expertise effectively. Consider medical professionals who understand diseases perfectly but implement treatment protocols that create unnecessary stress for patients, families, and staff without improving health outcomes. Their medical knowledge is excellent. Their ability to design systems that work well for everyone is surprisingly limited. The legal profession offers a specific example with patent trolls, attorneys who understand intellectual property law perfectly, but use their expertise to file frivolous lawsuits that waste court resources, burden legitimate businesses, and generate legal fees without advancing innovation or justice. These lawyers aren't incompetent. They're technically skilled professionals making choices that hurt the legal system, legitimate inventors, and ultimately their own profession's reputation. The professional blind spot occurs when specialized training creates confidence in decision-making ability across broader domains than expertise actually covers. A successful engineer might assume their analytical skills translate to effective management decisions. Accomplished physician might believe their diagnostic abilities extend to hospital administration. Meanwhile, they create lose-lose situations outside their area of technical competence. This pattern matters because modern society requires extensive interaction with various professionals who have significant influence over important aspects of your life. Learning to distinguish between technical expertise and practical judgment helps you make better decisions about when to defer to professional recommendations versus when to evaluate outcomes independently. But there's one area where these patterns become especially visible and consequential. Large organizations provide perfect laboratories for observing how the second law operates in structured environments with clear hierarchies and measurable outcomes. Consider how many major corporations, government agencies, and institutions consistently implement policies that reduce efficiency, employee satisfaction, and customer service simultaneously while serving no apparent strategic purpose. These decisions are usually made by accomplished professionals with relevant experience and good intentions. Universities offer particularly clear examples. Administrators with advanced degrees regularly create registration systems that frustrate students, enrollment processes that overwhelm staff, and academic policies that complicate teaching while improving nothing measurable about educational outcomes. The decision makers aren't trying to make things worse. they're applying their professional training in ways that consistently create problems for everyone involved, including themselves. Government agencies demonstrate similar patterns regardless of political affiliation. Regulatory processes designed by experienced professionals often create compliance burdens that hurt businesses, consumers, and enforcement agencies while failing to achieve their stated policy objectives. These aren't partisan issues, but examples of how institutional decision-making can exhibit lose-lose patterns, even when implemented by qualified, well-intentioned people. What makes organizational stupidity instructive is how it reveals the second law operating in environments with feedback systems, performance metrics, and accountability structures that should theoretically prevent systematically bad decisions. Yet the patterns persist across different types of organizations, suggesting that institutional design can't eliminate the fundamental reality that decision-making competence doesn't correlate reliably with formal qualifications. This brings us to the most important practical application. The most costly error you can make is automatically assuming that impressive credentials, wealth, or professional success predicts someone's ability to make decisions that benefit everyone involved. This dangerous assumption leaves you vulnerable to predictable patterns of dysfunction from the very people society teaches you to trust most. But the solution isn't cynicism about achievement. It's developing more sophisticated evaluation methods that focus on actual outcomes rather than impressive backgrounds. The key is learning to assess track records rather than resumes. When someone recommends a strategy, proposes a solution, or requests your trust, examine their history of creating positive outcomes for everyone involved, rather than just their qualifications for understanding the technical aspects. Do their previous decisions consistently make situations better or worse for all stakeholders? This evaluation method protects you from both credentialed stupid people and uncredentialed competent people. This approach requires developing what I call outcome consciousness, the habit of tracking results rather than getting distracted by impressive presentations, confident communication, or social status indicators. Someone might have perfect credentials and sound completely authoritative while consistently creating lose-lose situations. Another person might lack formal qualifications, but demonstrate consistent ability to improve situations for everyone involved. The second law of stupidity doesn't make credentials meaningless, but it reveals their limitations as predictors of practical judgment. Understanding this distinction helps you make better decisions about collaboration, trust, and authority, while avoiding both naive deference to status and reflexive skepticism about achievement. The goal is developing realistic evaluation methods that help you identify people who can actually create positive outcomes regardless of their formal qualifications or social position. So here's what you now understand that gives you a significant advantage in navigating professional and personal relationships. Impressive credentials and achievements are valuable indicators of knowledge and capability, but they don't reliably predict someone's ability to make decisions that benefit everyone involved. You've learned why some of your most frustrating experiences involve highly qualified people, how to distinguish between technical expertise and practical judgment, and why focusing on track records rather than resumes leads to much better outcomes. If this video changed how you think about evaluating expertise and authority, hit that like button and share in the comments about a time when someone's impressive background didn't match their actual performance. Here's your practical challenge. Over the next week, start paying attention to outcomes rather than credentials when people make recommendations or requests. Does your highly credentialed colleague's advice actually improve situations for everyone? Do your successful friend's suggestions lead to better results? Does that expensive consultant create measurable value or just impressive presentations? You'll be surprised by what you discover. Subscribe to Timeless Advice and hit that notification bell because next week we're exploring the third law, how certain people systematically create lose-lose situations without realizing it, and why recognizing this pattern is crucial for protecting your time, energy, and resources. The reality is that most people will watch this video, recognize these patterns in their own experience, maybe even share stories about credentialed incompetence, and then continue automatically deferring to people based on impressive backgrounds rather than actual results. They'll keep getting frustrated by the same dynamics because questioning expertise feels uncomfortable. Don't fall into that trap. If this framework helped you understand why some of your professional relationships have been disappointing, share it with someone who's still making costly assumptions about qualifications versus competence. The second law of stupidity isn't about dismissing achievement or education. It's about developing more accurate methods for evaluating who can actually help you achieve better outcomes. Start applying this distinction immediately, and watch how much more effective your professional and personal decisions become.